G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach with DR and welcome to the Round 14 stock market. Hope you're having a cracking week so far. Now, I tell you what, we've had two of the buys gone past us already, but we are now facing the toughest two buys, round 14 and 15, and many of us are starting to struggle. The rookie cupboard is absolutely bare. If you want a rookie these days, you have to pay up. Do you go a Wintager? Do you go a Sheldrick? Do you go the man I've got up the top here, Dev Robinson? Possibly. Do you even just play it even a little bit safer? I can't believe I'm using the word safe and Nat Fife in the same sentence, but do you pay up a little bit more and go up for someone like a Nat Fife who can cover for the boys? It's a tough week, isn't it? We've got the man under the Muppet mask at the bottom of the list this week, James Sicily. 3 weeks. He's gone. Well, 4 if you include his buy. Now, we know that Hawthorn are looking to appeal. Will they be successful? I'm not too sure. The issue is here, it's going to be on a Monday night, so you probably need to make your decision beforehand. Or, look, you may just want to hold, see what the verdict is. You was going to miss this week anyway if you'd already planned for that. On the other hand, you may think to yourself, well, if I can get a player in that's going to be playing for the next month, and Sicily is going to be rubbed out and the suspension stands, then is it a bit wacky leaving that much on the bench? Possibly. People are in different situations, but we'll go through all the options that you can get. The man we've got in the middle here, though, Tommy Stewart, I think is going to be a pretty obvious one. The other bloke here, Baker, if you take a look at his break even, well, I think it's a matter of thank you for your service, son, but time for you to go. He's been great for us this year, made some really nice cash, some really consistent scores for us on field when we've needed him, but it's time for him to go. He's got the upcoming bye anyway in round 15, so see you later, mate. But there is a lot to talk about. I don't think there's too many housekeeping things this week. Mainly, there are lots of players like your Lairds, your Zerrits, your Darcy Camerons, who I think will be really good options next week. So we're not going to focus on the round 14 bye players. We'll obviously focus on the blokes that have already had their bye, as well as some of the round 15 bye players as well. Also, make sure that you do check out the Supercoach Swordplay potty this week, because Spills, Janeth and I have all rated our top 8 mids, defenders, forwards, as well as our top 4 rucks as well. And that was by popular demand. Lots of people have been asking that question, asking for our ratings. So if you are interested in listening to that, make sure that you give that a listen. And thank you very much for all the support we've had on the Swordplay potty as well. I'm sure that I'm forgetting something. I'm not too sure, but I will leave that for the intro. Again, thanks for all the support, guys. Hope that you're well. Let's see who's sitting at the top of the list for the 500k plus defenders. At the top of the list this week, we have the helmet Caleb Daniel, defensive forward, 615,200. Look at that 3-round average, 137 with a lowly break-even of 63. With a projected score of 128, he's rising another 30k, getting very close to the 650 mark. Now, I've got the 8-ball symbol there, which means that I think he will finish in the top 8 defenders from here on out. We had a big discussion on the Supercoach Swordplay potty this week, as I mentioned in the intro, and all 3 of us had him number 6 on our list. Now, there's slight concern of a role change here, but the major thing that goes against this pick, I suppose, is that red buy, along with the price as well. But you cannot deny his form. Been fantastic, the little helmet man. James Sicily, well, I've got the double Muppet symbol there. Now, is it harsh? Yeah, possibly, as I mentioned, but I've got a double Muppet symbol there because he's been rubbed out twice, hasn't he? You've got to trade him. I think Spills is in the hold camp. It's team dependent, obviously. So if you've got some really nice cover there, I think go for it. But if not, the man below him is such an easy trade in. You're making over 50k going down to Tommy Stewart. I've said it week upon week, even if he has a bad game, he still goes 90 plus, playing many games coming up at GMHBA, which he loves, scores well down there, as many of the other cats do. So I think jump on Tom Stewart if you are not a Sicily owner. Don't look at any other pick, just make the trade. It's a really, really easy one there. Lowly break even for him as well, with a 79, 3-rounder of 119. Look, compared to the 147 of Sicily, it's not near that, I understand, but if you're looking for an alternative, he's certainly the man to bring in, without a doubt. The next man isn't. I've got the role reversal symbol there because, look, you've probably watched my round review. For those of you that listen to the Swordplay Potty, it was my rant for this week, and that was Jake Lloyd's shift onto the wing. You would not believe it. I bring the man in myself last week looking at that really safe type pick, and all of a sudden, Horse, in his wisdom, goes, do you know what? We're going to move Clark off Sinclair. We'll move Goulden to a forward pocket or on a wing, not on the inside, where he's going to be really damaging. We'll move the Seagull, Jake Lloyd, who's been one of the elite defenders in the comp for the last 12 years, onto a wing as soon as DR decides to trade him in as that safe pick. So, look, what did save this score was the fact that Blakey went down. He went back into his usual defensive role. Well, 49 points in the last quarter when he was moved back. So that's the potential of this pick if he's played in his right position. But I think Blakey may be right for this week. He's certainly not going to be out with concussion. It's more that toe issue that he's got. But even if he is, it's just 1 week of possible decent scoring. And then if he's back on that wing again, then this is an absolute disaster. I think we need to almost get out of the pick before it's too late. So we'll reassess after this week, but we probably do need him to cover for the next couple of buys anyway. Cal Wilkie's that pod selection, 104 for a 3-rounder, 88 for that break even. Wouldn't really go there myself. Bailey Dale, again, someone with that red buy, but I do really like him. 525,000, 104 for his 3-rounder. Richards is out of the side, JJ, so plenty more chips for Bailey down there, but that red buy really does kill him. Luke Ryan, so if we look at the season average, it's around the, I think, 107 mark, was 110 plus, 120 at stages, early stages in the season, but all of a sudden that 3-rounder is 86. His 5-rounder isn't looking great either. It's a changing game plan. They're not chipping it around like they were earlier in the season, and now they are actually starting to win some games of football. They're looking good, so I don't think they're going to resort back to that style of football, which is really going to hurt Luke Ryan. So I do not like him as a selection. I'm pretty much wiping him off my list, and you can see the symbol there. It's the 8 ball with the worried sign. If you had have asked me a month ago, I would have said he's close to a lock. I've said he's been one of the most underrated picks of the 2023 Supercoach season. But yeah, after that last month, changing game plan, just not going to be a really relevant pick, I don't think, going forward. And Jack Sinclair, well, this is a man that I should have jumped on last week. That's what the Twitter poll suggested as well. I went against that, which was unfortunate. Yeah, damn. But Jack Sinclair, the break-even is in red there with a 125, but that 3-rounder of 119 is pretty impressive. But remember, that really big score, that 160 plus, is now exiting his price cycle. But with what he did in the weekend, I think this is looking okay. The only possible concern that you may have going forward is the health of Jack Steele. We know that he's having some knee troubles. Does this mean that Sinclair needs to spend even more time in the midfield? I'm not too sure. If that's the case, I don't love it. But hey, it's not the worst secondary role in the world, is it? On to the defenders, 250 to 500k, and the man up the top, Harry Himmelberg. There's a fair bit of talk going on about him at the moment, and why is this? Well, it is, of course, because the coach has come out and said that they are looking to settle him down back, well, at least for the remainder of the season. We know that he's out of contract at the end of the year, and I think they'll be very, very desperate to keep him up at the Giants. So, look, what did he do in the last couple of weeks when he has been playing in defence against Richmond? Scored 103, had the 5 kick-ins there, 88 against North last week, which I think is unders, 22 touches, 5 marks, a few tackles, did have 2 kick-ins. Whitfield had the 4, Ash had the 2, so certainly does not have the monopoly there. I did notice that when he did kick the ball, a few of those were really long kicks, just to a 50-50 contest, which is always easy and handy points. But the issue for Harry moving forward is not whether or not he's going to be playing in defence, but what defensive role does he actually play? We know Cumming is due to return along with Taylor. could even be this week, if not the next. It's tough, isn't it? Where does he actually fit down there? If you look back to last year, he absolutely killed it. Had that really, really friendly role. Was basically doing everything, intercepting everything, 25, 30 touches, taking his kickouts. Will that be the same this year? Will he get that much of the pie moving forward? There's a few blokes down there, isn't there? Haynes is back there. Even someone like a Buckley. You've got your Whitfield, your Ash. So I don't think that we can necessarily rely on last year's data to decide on what we think Harry can do this year anyway. But I think that what bodes well for him is the fact that he's 374k. Break even of 26. There's a lot of value in the pick there. He's a great swing man. That defensive forward swing, if you've got a Sheasel, a Zeeble type, there you go. Get him in either your defensive line or your forward line. Easy swing there. The issue here is his buy, isn't it? So, look, I think given the fact that he's still 374k, that projected score 65, I think that is certainly unders. So, even if we doubled that to a 130, that's about 35k. And that's getting him to, around 410. So, that's still not a really bad price to pay for someone that can score that if he does score anything like that 130 plus. I'm not expecting that he will, but that's just an example of why I think you can wait the week and actually get him after his bye, because that round 15, as we know, is an absolute killer. So I do like the Himmelberg selection. Few risks attached, but at the price, and from what we saw him do last year in the same role, yeah, I think it could be a nice move, even as that 23rd man. You can see the 23 MJ symbol there. That doesn't mean that I think he's going to be an absolute GOAT. That means that I think that he could be that 23rd man that you do swing with your Sheasel, with your Day types, with your Decam types, with even your Goulden types, I think up forward. That's why I think he could be a really handy selection moving forward. Oh, this guy, Wanganeen Miller. Where was this in rounds 1 to 3 when I started your mate? Kammer put me onto him, said yes, he's going to be taking a lot of those kick-ins. I jumped on and then jumped off pretty damn quickly, but he has been the leading kick-in taker since round 8. He's had 5, 3, 3, and then 7 and 5 in the last couple of weeks. Scores of 97, 57, that wasn't great, but then 113, 100, and 119. So if we take that 57 out, lowest score is a 97 over the last 5 weeks. So disposal count's been 28, 16, which was that low score of 57, back up to 29, 25, and then 30 last week for his 119. Comes up against Richmond, Brisbane, West Coast, and Melbourne in the next 4. So a little bit of a mixed bag there. Does have that handy DPP status, always great for swing. So look, I'm a little bit salty on the bloke for having a terrible start to the season. But, look, with that 3-round average of 111, I suppose that you could look at him. He's by free. The symbol there suggests that he did have a bad start in red, but now looking to go green in fine form. But for me, I just think that he's too much of a risk at 461k. On the flip side, though, low break even as compared to that 3-rounder. If you've got more faith in him than I do, then you could go for it. Again, possibly even as that 23rd man, but you are paying probably too much for that. Much rather wait the week, even 2, and the go Himmelberg, I think. The Pepsi Max King. Look, if you don't know who I'm talking about here, then you haven't been following the channel. You should know who this man is. A great Darcy Wilmot. Best scorer of the year last year, playing down back. Got to watch this live, so that was one of the highlights of the day for me, I suppose. But yeah, I did have to trade the great man out a couple of weeks ago. I think this is actually good for Dev Robinson, the fact that he was playing back. I'm not sure. Well, Rich was subbed out last week. Got a bit of a knock, but wasn't playing really well anyway. So does he have a rest this week? Possibly. If that's the case, and the Pepsi Max King is down back again, then I think he's a really, really easy hold. Remember that he was played there ahead of Kitty Coleman as well. So they really rate him at Brisbane. Will play every week. 18 touches, 16 tested, 5 intercepts, 4 tackles against Hawthorn. So again, very, very easy hold for me with that handy DPP. Adam Sard, wow, geez, look, bad buy. Plays for Carlton. No offence, Janeth. I love you, mate, and other Carlton supporters. Damon, yeah, there's heaps of you. You know who you are. But look, amazingly, after 4 consecutive tons to start the year, he hasn't reached a 3-figure score since. That's 2 months without 100 plus. So I think just stay right away. The sheet, here's a holes at least until his buy, I think. 112, 79, 72, and 98 over the last month. Some okayish bookends there. His roll's a bit up and down, but if you're looking to flip, I think you should wait a week and then reassess. And again, if you're getting one of these 23rd type men into your side, that's been a real hot topic lately, then I think that's another reason to even look to hold the great Shees as well. Rising Star, he's been a little bit down on form, hasn't he? Got a little bit more competition now, and I don't think it's as obvious as maybe what it was or what we were thinking maybe over the first 5 to 6 weeks, I don't think. Hayden Young, well, what do I say about the pick? Is a bit of a nothing type pick for me. I've got the buy symbol there, and I think that's the only reason why people are pretty much considering him, because he's already had his buy. So if that's the only reason that you're looking to go there, then I don't think that you do it. But has been scoring better than Luke Ryan has over the last 4 to 5 weeks. There's been some okay scores, but not a real big ceiling type score. But again, we're not really seeing those floor type scores like we were earlier in the year as well. And Jay-Z, well, yeah, this is a bit of a frustrating one, isn't it? I think that you definitely hold now if you've already held last week. Last week was the week to flip, or even the week before if you were looking to get out of it. I've got the old man symbol there in Mr. Burns, but to be honest, he didn't look like that on the weekend. He looked fresh. How could this happen? How could this happen? Last week, he just looked like a different player. It looked like he was washed out. Spills called for his retirement early on in the sword play potty, so it was looking like that. But if you manage to hold on to him, back your gut a little bit, and you're still right for that round 15 red buy, then congratulations. This is not the disaster that we predicted at this stage. But I'll say it again, a week is a long time in Supercoach. On to the defenders, under 250k, and up the top we have the Pelican. Didn't look as good in his second game, and I know Tom McCartan's due back soon. Harry Arnold played well on the weekend also, so a little bit risky at the price, but is buy free. If named this week, you could jump on, but I don't think you get on him with any great confidence. Mullen, really unfortunate here. Adductor injury. Was he going to play anyway? Really not too sure, but scrap him from your plans if you went early. Yeah, that's a risk. Very unfortunate there. Fahe started off well, really well actually. 7 touches, tackle, missed shot for goal, but then faded out. Disposal counts of 1, 3, and 2 in the last 3 quarters. He's got handy TPP, decent price, but again, that red buy, terrible there. Just so hard to go near him. And Chincotta, low score of 33. That's now out of his system, and his break-even has lowered to 26. Easy hold for the week if he keeps his spot, and most likely good to flip next week before the bye. On to the midfielders, 500k plus. Now, we're obviously missing a few options this week, like your Zerets, your Rory Lairds, for example, but I'm not going to go through all the numbers in detail because I have talked about most of these players in great detail throughout the whole season. But at the top, you got Matty Rao. Look, he's a pod, 3-rounder of 116, break-even of 86. How long can he keep this up? I'm really not too sure. Been a little bit up and down, but overall, a really, really handy selection if you started him or even brought him in when Took went down. But can I really recommend him over some of the other selections that are available? Probably not. The bloke that I would love to jump on is this man, Liver. He has been smashing it out of the park. Did have a low score a couple of weeks ago with an 80-odd, but apart from that, just has not failed so far. A real surprise packet for me. Someone who I thought may average decently this year, but certainly not up with the top handful of midfielders. If you are interested in our ratings, this is myself, Janeth, and Spills, then make sure that you do check out the Sword Play podcast from this week, where we actually rate our top 8 mids. I think we even may go top 10. with a couple towards the end there. So make sure that you do check that out if you haven't already. We'll be sort of repeating a lot of what I already said, I think, here. Parker, look, is another one that I think could work out well, but do you see him as one of the absolute big boys? I don't think so, but again, really friendly buy. It's the same as Brayshaw. I'd probably buy Brayshaw over a Parker. I've just got a little bit more faith in him, and if you look at Sarong there, I've actually got the caution symbol on his teammate along with the binoculars, and that's because he is carrying a bit of a leg injury, so that's a slight concern. Or is it a foot, leg or foot? I can't remember, but either way, it's a slight concern. And given the fact he's got a red break even of 148, I would be staying away from Sarong at this stage. So it is a common question, has been over the last week, Brayshaw v Sarong, because of that injury concern that Sarong is currently facing. I would go with Andy over him. You've also got the Parker versus your Warner battle. If you've got both of the Freo boys, if you've already got someone like a Lockie Neal, then you could look to go one of the two, but again, maybe flip a coin. Warner has been in great recent form, though, with that 119 through a 3-rounder. Noah Anderson, only 95 for a 3-rounder. Again, he's a pod, but you're probably just looking at him because he's already had his bye, and he may already have a couple of the other options on this list. Lockie was pretty disappointing last week. Found enough of the ball, but just not damaging. Like many of his Brisbane teammates, just didn't have a fantastic game. Hopefully, with 3 out of the next 4 at home, he'll really start to hit back. And just remember that if you traded in Neil last week, which I know many coaches did, even though it was a low 100, I think for the rest of the season, he should be a pretty solid selection. Sam Walsh. Well, this pick just has not worked out. From almost the minute that you brought him in after his first 2 games, it's been downhill, hasn't it? He was looking okay after those first 2. People were thinking, yes, I'll bring him in now nice and early, almost guaranteed a lock to get DPP. He's going to be one of the top forward options, but similar to someone like a Max Gawn, who I was hoping for to get DPP, just didn't happen. We know the story with Carlton, so I'm not going to rag on Carlton, but it just is not happening for Sammy Walsh at the moment. Can't carry this side, and I would just be staying away from this pick. How low can the man go? He could be a real budget option after his bye if Carlton actually get their stuff together, I think. Sarong, I've already mentioned, just wouldn't go there. And I tell you what, talk about not wanting to go there. I've actually got the pass sign here with Mr. Burns. Now, Steele is only, 27, 28 years old, so he's not an old man, but the way his body's going at the moment, he may as well be, because his knee is not looking good. He reckons he's a lock to play this week, but who knows? Hopefully he does, but even in saying that, what do you expect? If you go 80 plus, then that's probably, what you look to take as an owner. As a non-owner, don't look at his price and be tempted by the fact he's already had his buy. Go nowhere near Jack Steele before you see something half decent at least. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k, and up the top of the list this week, we have Matty Johnson. Come on down, son. 252,500. Really stepped up when I needed him during a buy round last week. 90 plus. Also stepped up in the absence of Jay Ramirez. So, slight concern with him moving forward is, will he actually keep on to this role where he's attending 40-50% CBAs? I'm not too sure. Maybe pushed out a little bit, but even with some time in there, maybe 30 plus, he can still score well enough to be a decent emergency option if we need to rely on him. But for the next couple of weeks, he is going to be very, very important to my side. So well done, mate. This has been fantastic for his cash gen and also job security as well. And George Wardlaw, what an impressive young man this. What do you say about him? He is just an absolute gun. A late bolter, I think, for the Rising Star. If he keeps up this form, then is going to be giving his teammate Sheasel a red-hot run for his money. He may have left it a little bit late, given the fact he's entered the team mid-season. Sheasel's been in for the whole season, but he's having a real impact in there, and moving forward into the future, he's going to have a big impact as well. So break-even's now in the negatives, -8. Still got cash to make, but I think that if I was a Wardlaw owner, I'd probably just keep on to him for the rest of the season. He's just going to be really reliable cover for you in your midfield. Look, you may want to move him on, and if you've got the luxury, maybe keep on to someone like a Humphrey, the man below him. Big gap in the price here, I understand, but I think Wardlaw will start to close that in the next few weeks. The difference with Humphrey, obviously, is he's got that mid-forward status, that DPP, and he can cover on a couple of different lines. So, again, still has money to make, 37 for a break-even. Look at that 3-round average, 97. So that 90-odd that we saw earlier on certainly was not a flash in the pan. Now, he does have a bit of a tougher fixture coming up, so who knows how well he scores. Some of those bigger scores, I think, have been, basically because of some really clutch goals. He's done lots of other things in between that, certainly understand that, but he's not going to kick a clutch goal every week, you wouldn't think. He's certainly got the talent to do so, but at this stage, I've got the 23 on him there because I think he could be a wonderful 23rd man if you can. And obviously the symbols for Johnson and Wardlaw, the welcome mat, they are now in the new price range after being under 250k the week before. Oscar Baker is an absolute sell. Was a sub last week, 113 for break even. I did recommend to get off him last week, so hopefully he did that. If not, definitely get off him. Even though he can cover you this week for the buy, the money that he could potentially lose could be too great. I'd just absolutely jump ship now. I've got the hold on Will Ashcroft. You see a break even there of 116. Now, that's mainly because he's going to be some really nice cover over the next 2 buys. And he does play, I think it's 3 out of the next 4 at the Gabba. So that's really friendly for him. We know the story. We know how well he averages when he's playing at home. So I think in round 17, if you can hold him for that long, he plays West Coast, that would be an ideal time to flip. But if not, if you need to do it earlier, be my guest. Certainly don't have to hold him. That's more my situation there. And I've just got the wallet symbol and the target symbol here on Callum Mills because I heard that he actually got through training for the first time in a while this week, and he could be coming back in the next 1 to 2. So he'll be dropping in price with that massive 169 for a red break even. So when he gets closer to the 400k mark, I think he could jump on as a sneaky, it could be more of a dodgy M8, but even more ideally, even an M9. On to the midfielders under 250k, and what we're going to do for this slide this week is I'm going to actually put in a couple of clips from the Supercoach Swordplay potty because Janeth Spills and I discussed these 3 blokes in a little bit of detail, so rather than repeating myself, I will just clip that in. And if you've already watched the Swordplay potty for this week, you can obviously feel free to listen again, or if not, just skip the slide and get on to the next one. Cheers, guys. Hope you enjoy.
So the first one I have, Angus Sheldrick, inside mid for the Sydney Swans, may or may not have been playing just because Parker was injured, and Callum Mills to come back in 1 to 2 weeks, but he did get a good CBA percentage. Our thoughts on Angus Sheldrick?
He'll lose that, I reckon, when they come back.
That's my main concern because he was an early type draft pick, I think, from memory, Sheldrick, or possibly even a little bit of a bolder. But that's the main issue for me. Parker is a major CBA mid. He spends a little bit of time forward, and I think he's a capable forward, but that's where they prefer him, or that's where he's been spending the majority of his time. So I think when Parker comes back, Sheldrick just loses that role. So I don't think short, medium to even long term that he's going to be too relevant due to that. Well, the fact that Parker's coming back, and there's another bloke. Who's the other blokes that come back in there as well? Mills.
So you got Callum Mills.
Callum Mills.
2 weeks away. Yep.
Yeah, 1 to 2 weeks away. Look, who knows? He hasn't been playing too much in the middle, and that's what we've been complaining about. What he's playing on a wing, crying out loud. But look, with those 2 blokes coming back, that puts me off him as a midfield pick, mate. That's the main thing behind that.
Yeah, he did look very good. I must say that 44% CBAs. He did seem to roam the ground well and probably got dogged out on a bit of his score with that late 50-meter penalty that gave Wangani Malera the goal near the end of the game. But it's just like you boys are saying, it's very hard to go there. Spills, do you have any Anything else you want to add there about Sheldrick as an option?
Oh, he's definitely a nice talent. He's a bit of a slider in his draft. So he had a really good draft year. So his future's bright. But yeah, the ins that Sydney have to come back can only really hurt him. And you paid top dollar for the bloke. It's just awkward.
Well, speaking of sort of rookies that we weren't expecting to see come up into our teams or into our calculations, I'll tell you what, someone I was very high on in preseason, Marcus Windhager. After a couple of scores affected by the substitute, he is now sitting at 175.5k. He's got DPP. He has a 26 break even against a matchup against Richmond. Hunter Clark is 3 to 5 weeks away. Is he an alternative option as a downgrade target compared to Angus Sheldrick?
Oh, well, again, you're paying that inflated price, aren't you? 175. I rate him as a player. I really rate him as a player. What did he score last week? I think it was between 40 and 50. I think it was from memory. Is Bytel getting a game at the moment?
So Bytel's out of the team at the moment. Yeah.
I think Bytel could be some competition for Windhager. I think he's possibly only one bad game away from someone like Bytel getting a look in. I don't think that he's someone that's going to demand a spot unless he performs really, really well. So that would be my major concern. I think with Clark out, that certainly bodes well for him, but I think they've got a few other players that could also step into that role. So I don't think it's as if they're starved for players that could actually step in there. So for me, I would tend to shy away from him.
We'll have to watch. I'll keep an eye on him this week and see what happens. And if he goes up a little bit in price, if he scores like 80 or something, he'd be in the conversation maybe next week. But yeah, he won't be in my team this week, that's for sure.
Does he do more work with Steele? So who knows? Yeah, sorry, Jennifer.
I guess something to add to this conversation is both of them were heavily affected by games with poor efficiency. So in terms of, we like to talk about DT to SC ratios when we think about efficiency, whatnot. So Sheldrick went at 79 Dream Team and 61 Supercoach, and Windhager 66 Dream Team, 42 Supercoach. So both of them were affected by poor efficiency games. Sheldrick's stats, though, 19 disposals, 6 tackles, 10 contested possessions, 7 clearances in 52% time on ground.
Good numbers.
Or 57% time on ground. If he can stay in the team with Parker, I think he has that leg up on Windhager, but I prefer Windhager's job security at the moment just because he's in the team right now and he didn't do anything to suggest that he should be out of the team next week. I might have the savior for you. DR, you're going to be able to talk about this bloke a little bit. Devin Robertson, sorry. I just butchered his name. He scored 0 and -1 in the 2 games before this, but wouldn't you know, comes out on the MCG and scores 84 points, 14% CBAs, but his heat map shows that he was everywhere. 186.9k mid. Can we trust him for both scoring and job security into at least this week and next week when we have best 18?
Oh, he's such a sub risk.
Man, yeah, like scoring's one thing, job security is another. I was mentioning, and this goes back to the Harry Sharp conversation. I don't know if you boys remember when we were talking about Sharp, Robinson's one of the names that I mentioned that could come into the side and a bloke that I'd really want to see come into the side. Pryor was another one of those names that we actually saw in the side in the past weekend as well. So that, yeah, terrible. He's out this week. He's got to go this week, right? So, look, it's a really, really, it's so tough. It's so tough with Dev. If it was up to me, he'd be in the side. Now, I'm going to make a big call here. And I hate to say this because he's been an absolute warrior for us. Anyone that's been following me on supercoachtalk.com all those years back, DR, short for Daniel's Riches. I love Daniel Rich, a great man. But I've got question marks whether or not he's actually in our best 22 at the moment, Daniel Rich. I think he's really started to slow up. I know that his kicking has always been a weapon for us. But, you know, how much do you compromise for that big left boot? I'm really not too sure. I really like the look of the Pepsi Max King down back. I like him down back because I think he gives us a bit of speed, bit of aggression, bit of attack, a bit of flair as well. Now, he certainly hasn't got the boot that Daniel Rich has, but I like him down back. I certainly think he's okay in a wing, but I like him down back. And if that's the case, and this issue with Fagan, right? He can't make hard decisions. He hates making hard decisions. He stays very, very loyal to players, and it'd be very difficult for any coach to drop someone like a Daniel Rich. But I think you've got to start to make tough decisions, particularly after the last couple of losses that we've had. Do we want to make just the top four again, go out in a prelim, or do we actually want to go all the way? Let's start making some changes now. So I want to see Wilmot go back, and I think a spot opens up for Dev Rob to play on a wing and also play a little bit of inside time. Now, Hugh McCluggage is going to be out for the next week, so that definitely bodes well for his security in the next couple. And I think that he's got the potential to actually play his way into our side now. After his performance on the weekend, I watched him live. He's one of the few blokes that can actually hold his head high after that performance, I think. And given the fact that he's got some opportunity now that McCluggage is out, Pryor played an absolute shocker. Surely he's got to go. I think Zorko will come back in if he's available this week. Even Kitty Coleman has been on the outer, so he's no guarantee to come back into the 22 as well. If you're basing things off form, Dev's got to stay in, and I think he's got the potential to play his way into the side in the next couple of weeks. So I actually do not mind Dev Rob as an option, but I think that for a lot of that time, he would be playing that wing role, and that can be unfriendly, as we know. But I think given his traits and his strengths, that he will also be able to push into the inside as well. Bailey, he had his opportunity in midfield. He just hasn't really taken that. So I just prefer him as a forward now. Give someone like a Dev the opportunity. But this is more from me, what I think is best for the side. I can't speak on behalf of Chris Fagan, but I like him. And I think out of the players that we've discussed so far, maybe a bit of Brisbane bias because I'm a big fan of Dev. He's a bloke that I would go with, to be quite honest. He's a bloke.
I'd go with you, DR. I understand.
So that was our take on the three midfielders under 250k. But remember, keep in mind, we've got a couple of symbols here. You are rolling the dice, and there are certainly cautions, cons to these selections. Job security is probably the major concern here. Will these blokes be in the side in 2 weeks' time? I really couldn't tell you. So if you are picking one, remember just to pick with caution. On to the rucks, and I don't think there's a lot of people looking to invest here, but we will talk about 5 of these options. We actually went through our ratings on the Supercoach Swordplay podcast. So Jonathan and I had English and Wits at 1 and 2. Spills had English at 1. He had Kizza at 2. He's a big believer in Kizza. I am too, but maybe not as much as Spills at this stage. At 3, we had Rowan Marshall. And at 4, Jonathan and I had Kieran Briggs. And for Spills, 3 was Jared Witts and 4 was Rowan Marshall. So they're really the 4 that we're going to focus on, I think, for the rest of the year. And not much has changed, has it, with any of these selections in Marshall, Witts, English and Briggs. The other bloke we got there is Luke Jackson, so 513,500. Now, I do have the Shrek and the caution symbol there because Shrek will be missing this week, I believe, but likely to return the week after. So when Shrek resumes his normal role in the ruck, I think that will hurt Jackson. So I think his scoring will regress, and I just don't think he's going to be a great selection. I would be waiting, if you're looking for someone with that ruck forward swing, for D-Cam to come off the bye next week. He'll be most likely my best buy in the stock market, I think, from any line next week. I'm a big fan of Darcy Cameron, so I would not be looking at Lukey Jackson. Timmy English, very quickly. What a shocking start to the game. As a non-owner, I was rejoicing. What was it, 28, 29 points at halftime, and then somehow gets 30, 40 points for a goal. It was just ridiculous. It made me sick at the end as a non-owner, but look, he managed to scrape a decent score together. This was looking like an absolute train wreck, so yeah, kudos to him for doing that. Jared Witts, I think, is just a real safe selection there. That break even, sorry mate, shouldn't actually be in red. That should be in black because that is right on his 3-round average of 117. So if you're looking for a safe pick, I think you go Witts. Rowan Marshall, he's just such a highly owned player. I've had lots of questions actually in the last week or two. Do I actually trade out of Marshall to go to a Briggs? You are making 200k. Now, the issue here is obviously that Marshall has already had his bye. Kizza is going to be missing in round 15. You can see the red square there along with English. So that really puts me off. That move is, if Briggs has already had his bye, then maybe you could look to do it. You're banking 200 because at this stage, and this is just personal opinion, just what I'm thinking, Briggs is a keeper. Briggs is a keeper, and why not? Look, 109, 102, and 128 in his first three. Last week for me was the big test against Goldie. There hasn't really been a Ruckman this year that's managed to score really well against him. But this man, Kieran Briggs, has got the biggest score so far. So, look, if you can do that against Goldie, he's done it against Nank, he's done it against Rowan. Geelong's rucks, they weren't any great type of competition, I suppose, but three pretty solid rucks in Goldie, Nank, and Rowan. Yeah, well, why not? Why not? I am a believer here, and at this stage, I'm planning on keeping him as my R2 for the rest of the year. Your big decisions if you've got him sitting on your bench. If you've got Max Gawn sitting there, along with Briggs, you'd be tempted to probably keep Kizza, wouldn't you? So for those that got on early, for those that got a bit of Kizza in them, congratulations. He has been a phenomenal selection. We've seen this in the past with some other rucks, haven't we? Like your Robs, back in the day, he was fantastic. Even Bruce, I think last year. Was it last year or even the year before? I can't even remember. All these years get mashed into one. But yeah, well done, Kizza. Hats off to you, mate. What a phenomenal month he has had. On to the forwards, 500k plus, and again this week I haven't included all of your highly owned players, your Dunkleys, your Rosies, your Tarantos. I've just included 4 players here that unfortunately all have the red bye, and we know that it's close to impossible to trade any of these guys in, given the fact that we've got so many of the highly owned players that have this same bye as well. But we'll quickly discuss them anyway. We've got Toby up the top there, 509,100 with a break-even of 93. He's been attending some CBAs here and there lately, which has been a positive. 121, 83, and 119 in his last 3, with bags of 4, 3, and 3, averaging 19 touches and 3 tackles. Maybe a pod after the bye, but as I mentioned before, you just can't go there for now. I tell you what, if he hadn't burnt so many in the past, Bolton's ownership would be a lot higher. In red hot form, really showing not only a massive ceiling, but also some consistency. And this isn't really something that we associate with the Bolton selection. Only one score below 92 in his last 7 games. Gone 97, 152, 92, 139, 120, 77, which is that low game, but then right up to a 151 last week, owned by 6.3% of the comp, and a great pod, but the bye kills him. Jack McRae, Supercoach royalty, and I think a luxury upgrade after round 15, and Butters probably the same. Some say he's in Brownlow contention, having a ripping season. I own him. He's been a really fun own over the last 3 weeks. Look, when I say really fun home, it's been great watching him, but that hasn't really translated to massive Supercoach points or massive Supercoach scoring like we saw probably around a month ago. But he should be available at close to, or just over 600k after his bye. If you can afford to trade him in at that point, I would highly advise doing so. Definitely take a look at it because he is such a phenomenal player and really fun to own. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k, and sitting at the top list this week, we have Taron Thomas. Well documented, he's had some off-field issues this year. Pre-season, he was certainly someone I was having a sneaky peek at, talk that he was going to be playing off half-back, but what we've actually seen, particularly over the last couple of weeks, is him playing through the midfield. Look at that 3-round average, triple figures, 101, looking very, very nice at the moment. Obviously, got that DPP status as well, but then we get to the negatives. He's got a red bye. He's going to be missing come round 15, so makes him almost impossible to trade in. We've got LDU and Simpkin to return to that midfield, so certainly don't think he gets as much time in there. Certainly he's one that's got to get pushed out. I think they'll persist with Wardlaw in there. Why would you want to take that young man out? I'd have him in there over Thomas any day of the week. I know they provide different cogs and different... what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, sorry, it's late. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning here at the moment. But different attributes. I suppose that attributes is the word I was looking for through that midfield. But yeah, it's just not a pick that I would be looking to go for. I would much prefer going the ex-champion below him, Nathan Fife. So he's also getting mid-time, but is buy free, 20k cheaper. Comes with injury risk rather than off-field issues, but still cautions nonetheless. That's why you see that caution symbol there. 90 plus last week though, and a negative break even. Hard to go past that for the 23rd man cover. You can see that on Thomas and Fife, both capable of providing that. Has DPP like Thomas as well, can cover 2 lines, and as I've already mentioned, great buy cover as well. In saying all this, don't rely on him to be an on-field option, as the man could break down at any time. But out of Thomas and Fife, I would much rather prefer going the former Brownlow medalist at this stage. Jeremy Cameron, now, I've got the wallet symbol there. The break-even is 72, 3-rounder is 83. Could he hit some form? We've already seen what he can do at the start of the season. All this talk about best player in the comp. And hey, I still don't really shy away from that. A heap of potential, but what's been killing him has been the entries in there and the lack of those as well. Geelong just haven't really had a midfield, but with some of their stars returning this week and also in the coming weeks, I think that he's going to get a lot more of the football and a lot more opportunities. So this could be green ticks for Cameron. If you jump on now, he could be a very sneaky selection. So I actually don't mind him at all, but there's a little bit of hope in the pick as well. Mitch Owens, 408,900. Know he had a concussion game a couple of weeks ago. Really hit back last week with a 115 plus. But apart from that, we've seen a couple of decent games, but we have seen some floor games as well. So the price is pretty friendly there. But again, I'd probably rather go a Fife over him. Thomas v. Owens, I'd rather Thomas at the price, but you are obviously losing an extra game there. But yeah, I just couldn't really advise anyone going with the Owens pick. As a pod, go for it if you like though. And at Cogs, he's been super disappointing. Did hit the ton, however, on the weekend. Did look a little bit better, which was nice. Now, I've got Leon Cameron there. Poor Leon Cameron. He hasn't even been there this year, and I'm still blaming him. But it's more of just the head scratcher. You know, what's been going on with Cogs? He's looked fantastic some weeks, not so great the next. Even when you think that he's going to post out a pretty decent score, somehow it's, you know, an 85 to a low 100. We want more from this man. Let's see a couple of ceiling type games, because we've seen it in the past. We know that he's got it in him. Come on, Cogs, just been super disappointing. And the last man we've got here is the Tomahawk. So I've got the target symbol on him. You certainly would not look to trade him in this week with that high break even. Some pretty stiff opposition as well this week. So there's 100 difference there. With an 83, he's looking to go down another 37k. He'll be under 400, I think, in another week. So you certainly could look to go there as that 23rd man, but certainly not at this stage. Give it at least a couple. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. And yes, guess what? 3 round 15 by players. Up the top, we've got Phoenix Spicer. Spicing's up a little bit on the weekend. That was shocking, wasn't it? Absolutely terrible. But I really liked his defensive pressure. Unfortunately, I don't like his buy or scoring potential at that inflated price. Eddie Ford played a ripping game on the weekend, exactly what we needed, playing off a wing, even pushing back at times to help out in defence. That 80 plus score, that will now ensure he's got at least one more really solid price rise before his buy, exactly what we need, and looks like a pretty easy flip, doesn't it, to Marriage next week. And Josh Sin, well, he'll subbed out for a 21, got the buy next week, so not going there. So that's it for now, guys. All the best of luck with your trade ins and your trade outs for this week. And I'll see you soon in the next one. Time for me to get some sleep.